Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you're going to meet an international keynote speaker and a doctor on TV in the UK. His incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
So there's truly nothing in the United States that compares to my next guest. I would have to say it's Dr. Oz meets Dr. Phil. He is a very popular daily staple of British and UK television. His name is Dr. Tharaka. We're just going to call him Dr. T. Thanks for coming on the show.
Jeff, it's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you in the studio because I've had a chance to watch a lot of your speaking. You're just so dynamic. How did you become a UK television doctor?
By accident, Jeff, I'll tell you that. I didn't actually plan it. I was a full-time consultant psychiatrist in a busy clinic, and there actually came up an opportunity to take part in a TED Talk. I signed up for that, got the spot, and then the message that I had for people, which is really all about if you want to change your life, you've got to change your mind, started to get out into the corporate world, and the rest is history. Off the back of that, television did show up, which is great. Another great way to scale impact.
And what's that like? We were talking before the show that, seeing patients one-on-one is one thing, but to be able to kind of like minister to an entire nation, that's got to be like cool. I mean, what does that feel like?
Yeah, it feels great. I spent time in the clinic often thinking, do you know what, if I just met you or met your family 5 years ago and shared some of maybe what we're talking about now, that could have made a difference to how you are today. And so, you'd see one person an hour in a clinic, but then in a scaled up version, you're speaking to maybe thousands of people in one setting, or if it's through television, it's millions. And so that feels like a really effective use of time and sharing impact.
And you travel the globe. You're actually here in Dallas to speak. Tell us about the event you're going to be speaking at.
Yeah, okay. So I am very, very happy and privileged to be here in Dallas. A wonderful man, Robert J. Hunt, who is actually co-author of Nobody Cares, is having me speak at his CEO Summit. Actually doing that tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it. So we're going to be talking about some of the big brain villains in the workplace right now and how to overcome that with real simple brain science. And whilst I'm here, I am taking the opportunity to network with the business community here in Dallas, and it's truly awesome, exciting, and actually, if I'm honest, a little bit anxious about it because I don't know everything that's happening. I like to be in control.
Yes.
Who doesn't? And so, really looking forward to the next few days.
Awesome. We've got a little bit of video of you speaking. You've given 3 TED Talks. This is not a TED Talk, but we're going to show some video of you in action. Tell us about, what gets you out of bed in the morning? I mean, to be able to impact an audience, does that just feel good?
Yeah, it does. The way that our brains are wired when it comes to values, in a sense, Jeff, you can actually find your values in the head with a microscope. And the reason I say that is because your value systems are based on neurocircuits. Now, if you are operating in alignment with those neurocircuits, your stress levels are low, your energy is going to be higher, your motivation is going to be higher. It's the science behind where there is passion and purpose, there can be power, right? So what gets me out of bed in the morning is making the world a better place with the small toolbox of gifts that I can offer game changers in this world to apply. And I love doing it. It feels very kind of like something that is intuitive to me, and so it's kind of win-win.
And we're on a planet that I think needs a lot of healing right now. You and I were talking right before the show about a syndrome called the common enemy
Common enemy, intimacy.
Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, you know what? It's instinctive for us to travel in community and to be and to be included. And sometimes the least risky way to be included is to point and laugh at something else. And so common enemy intimacy is the formation of bonds between people over something that you can put down or be negative about. And this actually starts in the school playground, I think, when we're kids pointing and laughing at someone's shoes. And what that does is it allows people to laugh together and bond together. So we do like to be together, but common enemy intimacy is the lowest denominator of healthy bonding.
Tell me about your childhood. Were you part of the cool crowd or the...
Oh, gosh, this is good. Oh, we need more time on this, Jeff. I grew up in 1980s Port Lethen. Port Lethen is a small village south of Aberdeen, Scotland. And so my parents are from Sri Lanka. I show up in 1980s Port Lethen without much of a clue, trying to work it out. So are my parents, to be honest. My parents are Sri Lankan, so they told me, son, you are going to be a doctor, as many Asian parents do. And so I didn't really understand much about choice growing up. I did what I was told. But anyway, I wasn't in the cool crowd. My dad really kind of maintained a sheltered upbringing for me. So I wasn't going out with my friends or anything like that. Yeah. I was at home studying to be a doctor.
Wow. That probably upbringing helps you now as you're helping other people.
Totally. Yeah. In a way, I feel like entering into medical school and studying medicine and learning about the professional world and building empathy skills and working out, hey, if I can understand what your pain point is, then I can offer something that's going to make you better. That's the basis of treatment, right?
Yes.
Yeah, diagnose, then treat. And so learning all of these social skills and learning about bits of my life growing up from medicine, from psychiatry, has been really helpful for me, really healing for me, actually. And then that's just kind of goes around, can kind of give that gift back to other people.
What I love about you, Dr. T, is you're so knowledgeable, and you can probably talk to the Harvard scholar, but you can also dumb it down for the regular person, and that's a gift.
Well, thank you for saying. I think it partly comes from being in medical school, and my attention span is not brilliant. And I'm sitting in a lecture going, I've got to pay attention to what this lecture's going to say. And then the lights go down, and within 5 seconds of this lecture, my mind's gone somewhere else. It's just gone somewhere else. And then I just thought, hey, you know what? If this could be communicated in a way that really held my attention, then that's what I would love. I bet other people would too. And so in medicine, part of being a doctor is training other medical students. And so I kind of learned through decades of training other medical students in a way that made sense to me.
Yes.
Giving that to them. So, the greatest distance between two people is misunderstanding.
Mm.
And so if you can close that misunderstanding gap with communication that works for their brain, you're going somewhere.
And I've I hang around a lot of speakers, but I've yet to see a keynote speaker who has so many topics. We're going to pull up the keynote speaker page of your website, and as we scroll down it, I think there's half a dozen keynotes that you give. As we scroll down this, is there anything that kind of jumps out that you want to talk about?
There's always a brain story behind behavior. And if you want to change results, if you want to change outcomes, whether it be in your personal or professional life, you've got to change behavior. If you want to change results, you've got to change behavior. But if you want to change behavior, you've got to change the mind. And so people are often looking for solutions to do with work-rest harmony, for beating stress and burnout, for improving memory. And so what I like to do is find the scientific basis behind that, unpack it, demystify it, help people get clarity, and here are some top tips that you can apply. So a lot of these keynotes just come from the pain points that people have or growth opportunities they want to explore, and I find a brain story for that and
yes. We were talking right before the show, I think you called it integrated eroding.
Integrated people.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so explain that, because there were 3 pillars, I think stress and...
Yeah. So that's probably my most popular piece of material at the moment. Integrated people is all about the 3 big brain villains that are eroding the minds of people in the workplace today, in 2024. And the reason I say today is because the mental battles that we have to fight now are different from pre-pandemic or are different from 10, 15 years ago. And so, do you want to know what the three big villains are?
I would love to.
Yeah, okay. So the three big villains are stress and burnout. That is on the rise. The second big villain is cognitive overload. Too many tasks, not enough time. Okay, and as I was speaking with my friend Robert J. Hunt, he talks a lot about margin and the importance of building in a gap to be able to take those curveballs that are thrown at you. So cognitive overload is another one. And the third big villain is low trust, high fear environments. Okay, so low levels of psychological safety where your brain is running on high levels of stress, fear, anxiety, can't think straight, can't innovate, and actually we can't have discussions together that weed out risk. We can't have discussions together that come up with creative solutions that our brains really could give us. Sure. So by understanding these three villains and what to do about them changes performance for the road ahead.
So let's give some advice to bosses out there.
Right.
Because I think most bosses, they didn't even read a book on leadership.
Sure.
They were a head salesperson and they got promoted to leading a whole division.
Yes.
So they have no management skills.
Yes.
Talk about the qualities that are necessary in today's workplace to be successful.
Yes. Okay. So number one, I'd like to go to trust and psychological safety. We know that where there are higher levels of trust, I don't know if you knew this, but trust is in a way measurable in the blood. You can take a blood sample of plasma oxytocin and get a gauge on how someone feels about somebody else. Where there are higher levels of plasma oxytocin in teams, you get higher engagement, energy, productivity, less stress, less burnout, less sick days, and more enjoyment in life outside of the job that you do. So if you can foster trust as a leader, amongst your team, you're going to have better performance, better people, happier people. How do you do that? Being clear, because when you create psychological uncertainty for people, then that's when our brains start to fill in the blanks. That's when we don't ask questions, things like that.
Right.
So being clear, sharing communication broadly, involving people. I think gone are the days where people want to be told what to do. There's a place for that, but actually people now want to be involved in conversation. We're doing it all the time on social media. We're voting, we're liking. If we don't have a say, then we're not interested. That's how our brains are right now.
Yes.
So I would say that's a really big bit. And another big part actually is measured vulnerability. If you can show as a leader that actually, you know what, I don't have all the answers, and actually you might have an answer that we need. This is shown not to decrease the confidence of people in you, but actually make you feel, hey, that person's just like me. She's like me, and I can work with her or work with him.
Let's talk a little bit about the changing workforce, because I'm 60 years old, so I'm the tail end of
You look good for 60.
Thank you.
Skin routine and everything.
So I'm the tail end of the baby boomers, and in my day, when I was coming up, the mantra was, life is not a bowl of cherries,
right.
You're going to pay your dues.
Okay.
But I think a lot of young people coming out of college are really kind of expecting this perfect life. And so there's a disconnect, I think, sometimes with the boomer and the
Zoomers. Gen Zs. Yeah.
So how do you navigate the generation gap in the workplace?
Yeah, I think it helps to understand, if leaders and actually the entire workforce can understand that our neurocircuitry largely determines how we think, how we see the world. I often say, you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. And so the culture that you grow up in shapes these neural trees.
Right.
And so when you have a boomer and a Gen X or a Zoomer, and you try and combine working ways without clarity of outcome,
right.
without clarity of shared values, then things get really tense. Because you start to have value rub, which is basically the way that my brain operates is different to yours. Expectations are different, and that creates stress. By understanding the science behind, this is about neural circuitry, and then therefore, how do we work together? That becomes a very constructive conversation. And it's quite right to understand that, boomers particularly, I think patience levels have been ingrained very, very well. In my generation, in a Zooming generation, in my kids' generation, everything's instant. In the old days, I had to go drive to Blockbuster to get a video, rewind it. Now I can click a button on my phone, right? And so our experiences are different, expectations are different. So understanding the scientific basis and having that conversation that brings cohesion is a really simple way to go.
And I guess generations kind of understanding each other's brilliance. So the Zoomer can learn something from the boomer and vice versa.
Exactly. It's the beauty of team. And again, I go back to this idea of shared clarity. We talk a lot about, isn't it important to have diversity? Yes, kind of. And I'll explain why. People often say that whether there are more diverse teams, whether there's age or background or whatever, then we have a better team. No, we only have better performance in a diverse team where there's clarity of shared direction. Without the clarity of the goal, without the clarity of the timeline, without the clarity of the values, actually diversity is more complicated to manage. Why? Because we all have different value sets. Does that make sense?
It does.
That makes sense?
It does.
Yeah, so I think the full story around diversity is diversity in the context of clarity.
You're absolutely brilliant, and we could talk forever. We have about 2 minutes left. So
Okay.
I want you to look at the viewer in the eye and give them some final thoughts and words of encouragement.
Okay, words of encouragement. I think a really good place to start is to realize that you are amazing. There's treasure in you. And for some of us, we've unlocked and tapped into that, and that's encouraging. I mean, for others, we're on the journey of discovering that, but don't stop, keep going. And another really important thing is to have someone around you that you can speak to. Someone that you can stay accountable with, because it's hard to read the label from the inside of the jar. And when you're inside your own head all the time, sometimes all you're exposed to is your own thoughts. But sometimes you need someone around you to say, hey, this is what I see. I can see gold in you, and I want to call that out and help you in that. So, yeah, be encouraged.
Amazing. I can see why you're so successful and enjoy your time in Dallas.
Thank you.
We're going to end with his website, which is drtharaka.com. Dr. T, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Pleasure to be here.
That's it for now.
All right.
We'll see you next time.